Future. Were you excited about that as well? I'm excited to spend a couple of minutes with you this morning. We are going to talk about some new oils. I know that you're waiting for that. But before we do, I want to take just a brief moment, and I want to talk with you just a little bit of some of my thoughts on healthcare. I feel like that this has been a progression for a long period of time, much like Dave stated. As I think about my own personal journey that I've had with essential oils, it began for me, I'm confident, in the same way that it began for every one of you, and that is that there was personal need in my family. And in that process, we have not been disappointed. Now, that's brought us through a long journey to be to where we are today. Dave talked much about a lot of the research and a lot of the partnerships and the things that we have done in a precursory sense to prepare us for where we are right now today. And where are we today? We've progressed to the point where there are some things that must happen. And I will tell you, and I will commit to you, with every fiber of my being, we must change healthcare. And we will change healthcare. Now, that having been said, there's much that we've already done in healthcare. Don't for one moment think or believe that you have not been a significant factor in that process. The things that you are doing day in and day out, the individuals whom you're helping, the lives that you're changing, one drop at a time, will need to continue and will need to carry on. Now, we live in a time right now in the environment of essential oils where we're no longer disavowed. We're validated in everything that we do with the essential oils. We're validated in the science of essential oils. We're validated in how we use them. And we have and will continue to push the envelope with them. Earlier this week, we had what I consider to be a very clear and unique opportunity to take our rightful position and to further develop the cause of essential oils. Earlier this week, we were fortunate enough to be involved with the first ever medical symposium for healthcare professionals on essential oils. It was greatly attended. We had over 500 individuals there, and I believe that they were enlightened and that they were edified. And I also believe that they, if not already, will become great proponents of what we are doing with the essential oils. I actually have a short video that I thought I would just show you to capture a few of those moments.
This is quite epic, as many of us have been on this journey for a long time, looking forward to a day where we could speak very frankly about the clinical application of essential oils.
How many of you in this room were taught one thing about essential oils in your programs? I was taught 0 minutes, not 1 minute, in 11 years of school.
Now is the time. Now is the time. We can choose to watch something happen, or we can be a part of something happening. But regardless, it is happening. John F. Kennedy said, change is the law of life. And those who look only to the present or the past are certain to miss the future.
But it's so exciting to just be a part of this and just know that you're on the forefront. And just know that more of it's going to come out. And we're going to keep learning more and more about it.
Is this what we want to have on our headset? I preserve the status quo. Or maybe I finish my charts every day, and I get it. Or you can say, I change the way healthcare is delivered.
Isn't that wonderful? On behalf of myself and behalf of all of doTERRA, can we tell these wonderful physicians, these wonderful medical partners, and those that we currently have and those that certainly we will form, Can we tell them thank you for their efforts in joining with us? We love and appreciate them, all that they do. They work tirelessly. Thank you to all of you. Going forward in the future, we do have much to do with healthcare. Much of that will be unfolded to you in the coming 2 days and throughout the rest of today. That having been said, none of the issues that we will deal with, none of the challenges that we face are insurmountable. And I, for one, am looking forward to full participation in that process. I never imagined that that would happen in my lifetime, but here we are, and how wonderful that is. All right, let's move on a little bit, and let's talk about new essential oils. That sound good? All right. Well, let's first start by talking about conifer essential oils. Now, conifer essential oils are a broad category of essential oils. We have cedar oils, there's pine, there's fir, there's spruce. Several different oils fit into this category. Now, as you look at some of the conifer oils that we offer here in doTERRA, you're going to recognize your favorites, and you're also going to very quickly equate to what each one of them will do for you. And you'll also then have some understanding that they do some similar things, although they have some very unique properties. Now, I want to drill down, and I want to talk about one category of conifer oils, and I want to talk about the fir oils for just a minute. Now, we've had 2 fir oils in doTERRA. We've had Douglas fir, and white fir was actually an oil that we had very early on in the company, and many of you have loved and appreciated both of those essential oils. One of the things that I like about the fir oils is that you almost can't make a wrong choice when you're using them. Now, there is some variations in the chemistry of one fir oil to another. Of course there is, or they would all just be the exact same oil. But when we look at the major constituents, the major components of an essential oil in this category, they all have very similar characteristics, and so consequently some similar benefits associated with it. So I want to take just a moment, not to scare you, but let's talk a little bit about some of the chemistry that we see in the fir oils themselves. Now, fir oils are primarily monoterpenes. All of them are. Now, there is a few exceptions and variables associated with that, but they're primarily monoterpenes. Now, when we look at Douglas fir and we look at white fir, even though we see similar chemistry between them, we also clearly see that there's varying amounts or degrees of both of those essential oils for each of those compounds or those components. So, for example, those highlighted in yellow, this is where white fir has exponentially more than what Douglas fir has in that similar chemistry. And consequently, we can look at Douglas fir and we can see highlighted in the purple compounds or chemistry that far exceed the content or the amount that's present in white fir. Now, white fir has some unique characteristic to it. One of the reasons why white fir has been so powerful and beneficial is not just because of the duplication of chemistry, but because of the amount of limonene. That was a unique characteristic associated with white fir itself. But today, I'm happy to introduce to you a new fir oil, Siberian fir. Now, this is a beautiful essential oil, and you're going to love this oil. I hope you love it as much as I do. It has a very deep and penetrating aroma. Now, one of the things about Siberian fir is that it's very plentiful. It comes from the twigs and it comes from the branches is what we distill the essential oil from. And it's very plentiful. And that leads to a foreboding question. Do I need both white fir and Siberian fir? No, okay, you're saying yes. Maybe I shouldn't have put that slide in there. We'll see. Stay with me for just a moment. One of the challenges that we have had, I'm going to speak very frankly with you, with white fir, is to maintain sourcing, and then to maintain sourcing with the quality standard that we demand in doTERRA. This is not unique to white fir. This is a challenge that we face many different times with essential oils, which is the keystone of why we source essential oils the way that we do. why we form those partnerships in all of those countries around the world so that we can control that process 100%. Well, if we were to ask that question really specifically, let me point out some differences between white fur and Siberian fur. And let me put it on the heels of and the cusp. I don't know if you know it, and I don't mean to bring a dampening on convention this early on. There is no more white fur. Let me just say it. Oh, now don't get too disappointed, because I think I'm about to show you why personally, if I had to choose between white fur and Siberian fur, I would choose Siberian fur 100% of the time. And there's some very specific reasons why. Now, I want you to think back about how and why we source essential oils, because it's critical in this conversation. We source essential oils not just for the purity that we demand and what we seek, but we source essential oils also for the potency that we need. Potency is a very specific thing. You've heard us say it many times. It is possible to have an essential oil that maybe fits a purity model, but in no way or no sense fits to the degree that we would want the potency that we need from that essential oil. That's a direct driver of all of the benefits that we will receive. So first, let me tell you that Siberian fur has more prominent chemistry than what we saw in white fur. So let's do the same comparison. Here's the exact same chart we looked at last time, but this time instead we're looking at white fur versus Siberian fur. Now remember, these are the components and the compounds that we said are not exclusively just defining what a fur oil is, but these are the components and the chemistry that primarily gives us the benefits that we're seeking for. So it's a good thing to look at these compounds and this chemistry very specifically. And let's do the comparisons. We can see that Siberian fur is actually better than white fur in every single instance with few exceptions. Now, one of the notable exceptions is, of course, going to be the amount of limonene that was in white fur. But let me give you a gentle reminder. Limonene in white fur is not as prominent nor as productive as the limonene that we see in the citrus oils. If I want limonene, I would much rather use a grapefruit where I get 98, 99% pure limonene, instead of having it paired and matched with other chemistry in white fur. If we look at the other comparative models associated with beta-pinene and saponine, for example, remember that Douglas fir far exceeded white fur in that capacity as well. I like Siberian fur for the primary reason that when I look at the chemistry that allows for the potency that you and I want for the benefits we need to receive, Siberian fur far exceeds white fur. Now, I know we have preference. And if ever there's a time and an opportunity for us to be able to bring white fur back in, we certainly will. And you know that that happens from time to time, where we lose an essential oil because it no longer meets our criteria, or we lose an essential oil because simply we cannot source it as productively as we need to. We'll continue to work to resolve that, but in the meantime, know that Siberian fur more than fills the void that we have with white fur. And personally, I'm very excited about it. Now, secondly, with Siberian fur, Siberian fur, because of its chemistry content, has multiple effect on numbers of different body systems. And looking at the same chemistry again, if we were to break that down, I'm trying to make things very clear and very easy and directed in this conversation. These are all of the systems that we see associated with Siberian fur, where we can have direct support and effect. So for example, relaxation, that's a term that we've all become really familiar with over the last several years. But let me define what relaxation means. What we're really talking about in this context is, and fur oils have this capacity, and certainly we see that same thing with Siberian fur, we can directly affect, calm, and soothe the central nervous system. Now that has extreme ramifications. We know that we can support the cardiovascular system in all of its enterprise. When we look at critical levels of different things within the cardiovascular system, they can be stabilized, and we can support the body's normal processes for how it might produce or how it might control cholesterol, for example. cleansing properties, metabolism, digestive issues. And metabolism goes beyond just digestion. Metabolism is about the efficiency of how your body utilizes those things which we give it, whether it be nutrition or some type of chemistry or compound like what we see in the essential oils themselves. Now, the third reason why I think Siberian fir is superior in this comparison is simply because we also have the benefit of not just topical and aromatic, but now we have an internal use model associated with a fir essential oil. This is powerful. This is powerful because when you look at a lot of the research that exists around essential oils, you know that research is progressing. You know it's advancing. And a lot of the research that we see with the fir oils are driven by an internal model, internal consumption. And so this is now a really powerful attribute. So let me break it down for you and make it really simple. We can use it aromatically, topically, and internally. I like to think of it in this way. Aromatically is really for states of relaxation to all of its degrees. Now, it does not mean that we can't have other benefits beyond that if we diffuse an essential oil. Clearly, we know that that's not the case. But think about it as being soothing, relaxing to the body. Now, a unique feature associated with Siberian fir, in particular because of the high content of borneol acetate, is that it's very soothing to the airways. Sometimes when we have a lot of airway difficulty, we have a lot of drying of the tissues. And it's not only soothing, but it can help to change or help the body to support that process of changing the dry airways, which is very significant. Topical use, think about it for any type of skin irritation. Now, irritation is a broad subject. For example, sometimes we have skin that becomes agitated because of injury. Sometimes we have skin that becomes irritated because we have some type of a process that's developed. Applying this oil topically for any type of skin condition is a great way that you can ease discomfort, is a great way that you can soothe the tissues and take full advantage of that chemistry. And that's how you're accustomed to using pine essential oils. Let's look at internal. Now, when I showed you that chart and that graph talking about body systems that are affected with the chemistry that we see in Siberian fir. I really think that this is a good equivalent, and when I say supporting body systems, what I'm really trying to say is that it supports normal, healthy cellular function. Much like frankincense, we talk about that in the context of cellular health and how we support the body in that process. Siberian fir fits into the exact same context to some degree. And in fact, a good combination to use is Siberian fir and frankincense. Making that a part of your daily routine in the mornings is probably a good thing that you should consider. Now, I like to give it a little bit of application. Here's some of the ways that I've been learning to love Siberian fir, so I thought I would just share a few of them with you. One of the ways that you can do that is that some of the chemistry that we see in all of the fir oils is really good for cleansing, is really good for helping to keep at bay environmental type threats. So mixing it with a citrus oil for surface cleansing and or for diffusing is a great way to control that. Using it in combination with rosemary, eucalyptus, cypress, or lime is great not only from an aroma perspective, but very supportive for the respiratory system as a whole. And then lastly, some of my favorite oils for using for skin include oils like cedarwood or the floral oils. Combining, in this case, the Siberian fir with one of those oils is a great way to multiply the effects that we would want by applying to the skin topically. So some simple, easy ways that you can use Siberian fir. You excited about it? It's a beautiful oil and you're going to love it. Now let's change gears just a little bit and let's talk about flower oils. Now those of you who know me, I quite often say the aroma of lavender is not necessarily my favorite aroma, but lavender is one of my favorite essential oils clinically. It is how, and I recommend it for many individuals to use in a variety of different ways. Now, floral oils, much like we had this discussion about conifer oils, have some general qualities that we could apply, I think, to every single one of the floral oils. And we have a lot of different floral oils in doTERRA. We have lavender, we have, on occasion, we have rose. In the past, we've had jasmine, we have Roman chamomile, we have helichrysum. We have several different oils that Melissa is another great essential oil as a floral oil. Now, as a floral oil, I think we always believe that when we use that term floral, it means it just comes only from the petals, and that's not always true. Sometimes the essential oil itself comes from what we call the aerial part of the plant, and that means everything from above ground. And other times it comes very specifically only from the petals of the plant. One of the things that I love about the floral oils, aside from the skin benefits that we see, is that it is very supportive of the body's immune capabilities. So it's another way for us to be able to enhance the body's normal functioning that way. And I like using the floral oils in that capacity because not only are they effective, but they're non-aggressive. Now, there's something that seems to be missing from this category of floral oils, and it's the chamomile oils. How many of you know about chamomile essential oils? A few of you. Well, you're all about to learn a little bit more about the chamomile essential oils. Now, you have had some exposure to chamomile in doTERRA already. We, for example, have blue tansy, which is Moroccan chamomile, and we have blue chamomile, which is German chamomile. Those are present in both the deep blue, and they're also present in the Balance essential oil. Now, one of the things that's interesting about chamomile oils is that their chemistry is and can be very, very different. We have Roman chamomile as a single oil for you, but if we look at the whole category, the three essential oils that are generally used this way in the chamomile family is blue tansy, German chamomile, and Roman chamomile. Now, this is interesting to me. If we look at the chemistry of these, you can see how they're all three uniquely different. So Roman chamomile, for example, is comprised primarily of esters, which means it's very relaxing and very soothing. It has very little of sesquiterpenes, and it has a few monoterpene contents associated with it. If we look at German chamomile comes from Germany. It's in other parts of the world too, but German chamomile has almost primarily nothing but sesquiterpenes. That makes it very unique as an essential oil. And then if we look at blue tansy or Moroccan chamomile, coming from Morocco, it has primarily monoterpenes with some sesquiterpenes associated with it. Now, the value of this in both blue chamomile and in blue tansy is that they contain a chemistry component known as shemazoline. Now, if we look at the chemistry, and shemazoline is one of the actives, which, by the way, is what gives blue tansy and gives German chamomile its beautiful blue color. When you use deep blue and it has that beautiful blue color, it's because of the shemazoline content that's associated with blue tansy and German chamomile. Blue tansy has far and above more of that primary compound that we're looking for than any of the other chamomile oils. So today, I'm happy to announce to you blue tansy. Now, blue tansy fits into a broader group that goes and extends beyond the chamomile oils and fits into a group that we call the blue oils. And blue oils specifically would be blue tansy, German chamomile, and then yarrow fits into that grouping too. And they all contain some similar chemistry based around shemazoline. Let me drill down on that a little bit further for you and tell you why I think blue tansy needs to become something that you learn how to use on a regular basis, that you incorporate into some of the daily routines that you're doing. Now, I like breaking things down by looking at what is the chemistry doing and what are the expected outcomes associated from that. So we've identified here chemistry and expected outcomes. And you can see that I've used all of the compliant language I possibly could. Soothing relief, skin support. Oh, it makes your mood so much better. I got away with a little bit more this year, and I can tell you that it does have great antioxidant capacity. It also is very stimulating for your immune system. Now, when I say soothing relief and skin support, I'm talking about some very specific responses within the body. We know that the body has primary responses of protection. We know that the body has primary responses that's associated with helping the body to heal, helping the body to be sustainable in that progression of health. And when I talk about soothing relief and when I talk about skin support, I'm talking about addressing those issues directly through those access points, through applying this essential oil either aromatically or topically. Now, we're not recommending that this oil be used internally. I will tell you that there's much out there that says that you can, but one of the things that we have always been very dutiful in doTERRA and very proficient at, and frankly, it's what allows us to do and accomplish many of the things that we currently are, is we work very, very hard for compliance. And compliantly, and in a regulatory view, it's not on the GRAS list. It's not something that has been reviewed that would be considered generally regarded as safe for internal consumption. So we'll focus instead on aromatic and we'll focus on topical. Now, when we diffuse it aromatically, it has this beautiful aroma associated with it. I had somebody in my office the other day who, when I let them smell the blue tansy, yes, if you come by any of our offices before convention, little secret, you'll see all the new oils and products sitting on our desk. Just a little hint for you. If you want to know in advance, you can come by and you'll see them all right there. So this oil was seen, I let them smell it, and they talked about how penetrating this essential oil was when they used it. I find it to be the exact same way. Now, we sometimes underplay the value that comes when we say diffuse an essential oil to elevate, uplift our mood, or create a positive environment. I think we underplay the value of what that really represents to us. Understand and know that your body is under constant threat. Your body is under the constancy of needing to battle the environmental threats that we receive as well as the internal threats that we receive. When we talk about improving mood, what we're really talking about is we're sharing that we can sustain body chemistry in the appropriate amounts and for the appropriate reasons. We don't have that disruption. When we have mood, when we have emotions, later on, tomorrow, you're going to have a chance to hear from somebody that I'm really excited about. Her name is Dr. Irina Szabo, and she's from MD Anderson, and we'll talk with you about our emotions. And that's her area of specialty, and I'm very much looking forward to that. I know if she were here, she would tell you that based out of those responses in our body is a cascade of events that will either improve health or will degrade our current circumstance. Controlling our mood and our emotion is critical. So don't underestimate when we say something as simple as diffuse this essential oil. And then, of course, topically, soothing tissues. Now, one of the things that I like about this essential oil is that a lot of times we have responses in the body that are driven by other chemistry. Histamine, for example, and we can have itch, and we can have rashes, and we can have things that become somewhat difficult to deal with. This is an oil that is suited very well for helping the body to sustain those processes in a more normal environment. So we don't experience that to the degree that we otherwise would. So think about it for any topical needs that you might have. Sometimes skin becomes dry, it becomes flaky, it becomes irritated. This would be a great essential oil to consider applying topically to help those tissues to normalize. And then, of course, because of the shemazoline content, it's very relaxing and it's very soothing. So sometimes we have overactive responses associated with tissues, either from overuse or because of injury. That can be uncomfortable and unpleasant, and applying this essential oil topically gives you a great way to have some good, strong relief and benefit that can come from that. Now, here's the simple ways that you can use this essential oil. So I like using it for that topical experience that we talked about of easing and controlling muscular disruption or the challenges that we have that way. Think about lemongrass, marjoram, or cinnamon. I know that sounds like a strange combination, but it gives you this very warming and soothing sensation, and it will help the tissues to be more sustained and not as tenuous and strained in the activity that they're in. Lastly, I like combining this oil for its skin purposes with cedarwood, frankincense, or geranium would be those that I would choose to combine with this oil. Now, I want to talk with you about one more thing with blue tansy. How many of you like the movie Smurfs? I got to give you some caution. If you want to look like a Smurf, this is the oil for you. You're going to be so excited about this. This is wonderful. Now, there is a compound that we've already talked about, chemazoline, and chemazoline is interesting because it doesn't naturally exist in this form in the plant before we distill it. When we distill blue tansy, and when we distill German chamomile and some of the others, we have a chemical catalyst that occurs, and that is that with heat and pressure that comes from steam distillation, we take, in this case, matrescine, and it is converted into chemazoline, which is this beautiful blue compound. Now, chemazoline, as powerful as it is, as you apply it to the skin, it will give a blue hue or a blue tone to that. Some of you might want to use it as eyeliner. Maybe that's a good way you could think about it. However, there are some things that you can do that will help that to be lessened. Now, let me also tell you that there's nothing permanent about it. I had the good pleasure of having Laura in my office last week as well, and Laura goes, well, let me try that oil, and she put some on, and I went, whoa, wait, it's going to turn you all blue, and it didn't. It disappeared in her almost immediately. Do you know what that tells us? It tells us that Laura has lots of health issues. That's what that means. That's exactly what that means. On me, it tends to stay on the skin a little bit longer. I tried after you left, and I had a blue hand for an hour or so. So this is a great oil if you're going to apply it topically. Try to do it in an inconspicuous place if you can. If you want to use it topically for your face, and it does have some beauty characteristics associated with it, especially when you combine it with other essential oils like cedarwood, as I mentioned, or geranium. Here's some things you can do to prevent or lessen that effect. Using this oil at night, if you choose to use it on your face, it's only momentary how long you're blue for, but it can and does maybe make people feel uncomfortable. So here's some simple things to do excuse me, that will greatly diminish that effect. So first, dilute this essential oil. Now, I like this for another reason. Remember, we've talked about dilution several different times. It's not wrong to dilute essential oils. I also don't believe it's necessary that you have to dilute essential oils. And last year, I brought some clarity into this for you by saying we dilute essential oils for reason and purpose. And one of the reasons and purposes that we defined was when we dilute essential oils, it holds them in the tissues where we have applied them. It becomes a more targeted application. It becomes more directed benefit for right where we apply the essential oil. So diluting this essential oil will be helpful in both the effects and the benefits that we receive, but also in the opportunity to much or greatly lessen the amount of bluing that you would see on your skin. Add 1 or 2 drops to your favorite doTERRA lotion or our skincare. And lastly, one of the things that I like doing is blending this oil, as I mentioned earlier, with other essential oils. That also enhances the benefit, but very quickly helps the oil to absorb, and it will not last for long. So use this oil with great confidence. Are you excited about blue tansy? Now, my suspicion is going forward, you'll see other oils that will be added into a similar category. So let me talk with you about one final essential oil this morning. And let me begin by talking about the endocannabinoid system. Yeah, some of you are very excited right now. Hold your excitement. I'm gonna walk you through this very carefully. Now let's talk about what the endocannabinoid system is. Now the endocannabinoid system is critical for several components of your health. There's no doubt about that. There's nothing we could say or even would want to say that would ever question that. The endocannabinoid system really functions through the cannabinoid receptors. Now, there is most likely more than just CB1 and CB2 as a receptor. The belief is that there's most likely more, but these are the receptors that have been discovered and is known currently how and what they do in terms of functioning in the body. So for example, CB1 receptor. This is a primary impact on the brain and the central nervous system. So thermal regulation, energy, appetite. Even when we look at things like, for example, you've heard a lot of research talking about marijuana and its great benefit for ocular health. That comes by interaction with the CB1 receptor in the central nervous system. CB2 receptors have a reach that is outside of the central nervous system and primarily impact the endocrine system. So think of the chemistry system within the body, the glandular system in the body, and the body's immune capability, the body's immune system. So these are very targeted and very directed outcomes. Here's a good example of how the endocannabinoid system would work. How many of you have ever heard of a runner's high? Well, runner's high comes from the endocannabinoid system. So anandamide, which is a specialized compound, which is a cannabinoid, that is released from neurons within the brain when you're under heavy exercise, like running, for example, and it elucidates a response direct from the CB1 receptor. And it gives you that sensation of the runner's high. The other side to that, however, I think is more critical. I hope the day never comes in doTERRA, and I can tell you it never will, where we source essential oils because that's what we're trying to elucidate in the body. That will not happen, ever. Now, that having been said, we do want responses through the CB2 receptor, and in the example that I'm using, when we're under heavy exercise, elucidating the CB2 receptor system means that the body is under protection. I'm less likely to damage tissues. I have faster recovery within my tissues. So it sustains body responses in an appropriate way. Now, those are the endocannabinoids. That's why it's called the endo or cannabinoids, or a system that works within the body. But there are also exocannabinoids, cannabinoids that exist outside of the body, and there are 3 main cannabinoids that are derived from plants that I need to share with you. Now, let me tell you that a cannabinoid is defined as anything that deals with or works with the CB receptors, CB1 or CB2 or both. And so the 3 main cannabinoids that we're going to talk about today, one is cannabidiol, one is tetrahydrocannabinol, and then lastly we have beta-caryophyllene. Now, CBD, this is the one that you've heard a lot about, that you read a lot about in the press, you read a lot about in the media. Let me give you some clarity into this for a moment. I'm glad some of you are really happy. You might not like me in a minute, so let me explain this to you. All outcomes in the body, you've heard me say this before, is an issue of concentration and delivery. Cannabidiol is a cannabinoid that we expressly see in the cannabis plant. Now, there's nothing wrong with that except for 2 primary things in this discussion of how we would define potency in doTERRA. First, we've tested a number of different oils that are in the marketplace under this umbrella, and what was alarming to me is that cannabidiol was not present or was present in extremely small quantities. We're not talking 1 to 5%, we're talking 0.02%, 0.01%, very small amounts. The other challenge that exists with cannabidiol, now there's lots of reasons why maybe that's not being liberated in the essential oil. And this is a big challenge with this: improper processing, sustainability of sourcing, and whether or not the compound and the chemistry is even present in the oil in a substantial amount to create the benefit that we're looking for. Is it in the plant? Yes. But that does not mean that it's going to be present in the essential oil. And our testing has showed us that in general, it's not. Now, it also does not have direct effect on the CB2 receptor, which is what we're after, or CB1. It doesn't interact with either one of them. It has an indirect route. Part of the challenge with that is we like direct activity, because when we have direct activity, we have direct response that correlates to what that receptor or what that ligand, or in this case, what that cannabinoid would suggest that it should do. So that's a challenge that exists with that. That does not mean that cannabidiol is not a good thing. It just means it's not readily available. The other challenge we have with tetrahydrocannabinol is tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, we're all familiar with what that is. It interacts almost exclusively with the CB1 receptor. And it is present in hemp oil in very high amounts. It's illegal. And we're not going to participate. We refuse. So that leaves us with this last one, beta-caryophyllene. Now, beta-caryophyllene, in my estimation, has some significant potential associated with it. One, it does not interact with CB1 receptor in the central nervous system, which means I don't have any of the elucidative effects that we see with some of the other products that are available. Secondly, it does interact, and it interacts directly with the CB2 receptor, which is where, when we look at all of the research and all of the information, it's talking about this interaction, this direct interaction with the CB2 receptor. And we get that in full context with beta-caryophyllene as a cannabinoid, rather than cannabidiol, or rather than THC. We look to beta-caryophyllene as providing that same benefit, but in a more magnified and powerful response. So we have a lot of oils that have beta-caryophyllene in it. We've talked about black pepper. We've talked about black pepper in a number of different qualities of use, including helping the body to recover and to overcome addiction-type behaviors. All of these essential oils have very strong capacity for helping to eliminate any type of environmental threats that we would see. They're all very significant. Each one of these, what's not listed on here is oregano, and you've heard me talk many times about oregano and its interaction with CB2 receptors. There is not any one single oil that is going to do all things in all circumstances. It cannot exist, and it will not ever exist, because simply your body doesn't work that way. That's not how body physiology works, and that's not how chemistry within that physiological system would be expected to work either. And so I'm going to introduce to you today an oil that I think far exceeds anything else that's available, Copaiba. Now, there's some unique things about Copaiba. First is that it is a blend of 4 different species. Now, why would we do that? This is not new to doTERRA. Some would argue, well, you do it because it gives you sustainability. That's not the process behind the thinking that we would have for combining 4 species of this essential oil, any more than that's the thinking we had for why we do the same thing with frankincense, and we have 3 species of frankincense oil combined together. It's because we increase the therapeutic potential. We increase potency, and we increase diversity of that potency. So we've blended 4 essential oils together, which, yes, is very unique to doTERRA. Not something you'll be able to find anywhere else. But why we did it is because now these are the types of outcomes that we expect to see with this essential oil. Liver and antioxidant support. You know, your liver is under constant stress, and having something that on a regular basis could be soothing and amplifying of its abilities to function appropriately, and go right through the list: cardiovascular, digestive, immune system, respiratory, neurological function, all driven through the CB2 response as a receptor. And now we have chemistry that interacts with that at an appropriate level so that we really do see these types of benefits and outcomes. Now, there's some simple ways to do it. Internal application. I've given you, instead of just saying, this is what we want to do, I'm giving it to you differently. Use 2 drops in a capsule. And it can be taken in the morning and in the evening. And I'm suggesting that you would want to do that for cell support, whole body support. Blend with frankincense will increase that even more. And you learned just a moment ago that maybe considering white fur is another way, or Siberian fir is another way that you could increase that even more. Put a couple of drops in your water. That remains an excellent delivery system for the essential oils, not because the water and oil mix, but because it gives us access to the mucous membranes. Take 1 or 2 drops under the tongue in the morning, or take one with mealtime, a capsule with mealtime. Now, remember last year we talked about neuroexcitability, and we said that when neurological tissue becomes excited, while there can be some real benefit with that, there can also be some real challenges because it increases our cognitive perception of being uncomfortable specific to a tissue response that's elucidated or anticipated through some other fashion or process. Do you understand what I just said? Some of you do, some of you don't. It's okay. What you want to do is use this oil topically for some of those kinds of conditions. So apply it directly over the affected area and do that diluted for the reasons that we just talked about. It holds the essential oil directly into the tissues. Combined with blue tansy is a great way to think about this topically for any skin irritations. And then once again, blend it with the facial moisturizer that we have, or with cedarwood, which supports the underlying tissues of the skin. So you get a really healthy skin profile on the inside out by just following a simple application method that way. Now, it really does have concentrated focus directly into these areas. And it's very powerful for that reason. So think about this globally now for immune support. Think about it for good ways to have a normal, controlled, wait for it, inflammatory response, and a reduction of tissues and reduction of the excitation within neurological tissues. In other words, helping the body to become at ease through all of those systems. Now, aromatically, this is a really easy essential oil to use too. It is just as simple as breathing in the aroma, but I would suggest that you learn to use this oil periodically throughout the day, calming the emotions and the stress that comes with that sense of dis-ease that happens in the body. Combine with citrus oils to elevate the mood, or combine with Siberian fir or a floral oil will cause it to be deeply relaxing and soothing to the body. Are you excited about the new oils? There might just be a few more. And so hold on to your seats. I'm going to enjoy being with you for the next 3 days. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage doTERRA founding executive